Yo, welcome to the video. Today we are doing another episode of Bible Talk. We've got Kills and we've got Nick here. And today we're answering this question. Why does following God seem so hard when we know that we can trust God with everything? Why is it so hard to follow God when we know that we can trust Him? So yeah, we're going to be digging into this question and thinking about what following God looks like and how we can actually place our trust in God, and start applying some things to our daily lives and trying to come closer in relationship with God. So yeah, to kick us off, Nick, I'd love to ask you, what does following God actually look like? Like, is there a rule book on what that's meant to look like?
Well, Theo, the short answer is yes. When we're looking to follow God, the first question we have to ask ourselves is, how does God want us to act? What rules does He want us to follow? What's the difference between being holy and being good in God's eyes versus being evil in God's eyes? And the answer to all those questions can be found in a little book called the Bible. And in the Bible, God gives us a certain set of rules and a certain set of things we are to do and things we are not to do. As an instruction book, as a rule set, and as a guide for living our lives according to His standards, because everyone has standards. God, people, everyone has their own set of standards, but if we want to be seen as good and as holy in God's eyes, we have to start our lives by trying to live according to His standards.
Yeah, so it's like there almost is a rule book, and that rule book is the Bible. I guess, like, Jesus is the perfect example of what following that rule book looks like. And when we try and imitate Jesus and what He was doing, that's when we know that we're succeeding and that we're actually following God. And sometimes, we're not Jesus, we're not God, so we mess up. But when we're trying to achieve that, when we're making the effort, that's when we know, when we can see change in our life happening. From when we weren't trying, that's when we know that we are followers of God. But that's a challenge. It always is a challenge. Kills, have you ever had a time in your life where you were trying to follow God or doing something intentionally, like, I guess, from the handbook of the Bible, but something came in and you were struggling and it just messed up, I guess, how you approach your walk with God?
Yeah, one thing for me has been prayer. Prayer is talked a lot about in the Bible, but it's very explicitly mentioned that you should pray without ceasing and, like, always be in prayer. And that challenged me because I was trying to be perfect in my prayer. I was trying to make sure I said the right things and was in a good mindset, was doing the right things. But I like how Jesus says that, come as you are, come to me, all who are weary. And I feel like that really helped me and changed my mindset, that no matter what I do, no matter what my week, I'm still heard and still loved.
Yeah, like, it doesn't matter how much we mess up, like, God's still going to be there. He's still going to love us. And whilst we should try our best to seek God and to not mess up, we're called to seek after God and be imitators of God. I think that's in Ephesians. But yeah, even when we do fail to do that, He's still there. He still loves us. He's unchanging. His love for us will never cease. That's just the good God that He is. But yeah, I guess when we are following, it's like it's not just a state of mind. It takes action. Because we can say things like, "Oh, I'm trying to be a follower of Christ, and I'm trying to do good things," but, like, what are you actually doing? What are we actively doing in our life to seek God? And so I'd love to just get a couple of ideas from you. Like, do you have any Nick, do you have any things that you do actively and intentionally to try and follow God at the moment?
Well, one thing I've been trying to do for about half a year now is first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is open up a proverb, the proverb of the day, aligning with the current date. So today is the 6th for me right now. So I would open up Proverbs 6 and I would just read it. And Proverbs have just so much knowledge packed in. It covers so many different aspects of life, so much practical advice. It just like if I don't read anything else of the Bible that day, just being able to get one or two verses just in my head, giving me just a different outlook on life, maybe a little perspective change, something that I might do that day that, before I do that action, I might think back on a proverb I read that morning when I woke up, and really reconsider my action. I feel like that is one way I connect with God. Another way is praying, even sometimes in whether it's like work, doing school or playing games or whatever. Sometimes in between a match or at a time where I'm not doing anything super important. In those quiet times, I sometimes just close my eyes and I say a quick prayer to God.
Yeah.
Those are the two main ways I connect with God, and between those two, I feel like I'm able to hear Him talking to me at least once every day. Maybe quietly in my heart. Maybe I won't feel anything very specific, but the more you intentionally reach out to contact God, I think that the more you're able to develop a connection over time, slowly, not in like a, I think that a little bit off topic, but I think that the thing that the most intense you'll feel God is like right as you're saved, especially if you're coming out of a bad situation. But but in order to kind of regain that kind of passionate faith, it takes a little bit at a time, minute by minute, day by day, over months and years to be able to kind of regain that passion. And I think that's just important to try to do that by not missing out on like a little bit of quiet time that could be used to keeping that faith instead of being used for just something that won't matter in the end.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you say, it's when we come out of really tough times that we find ourselves growing closer to God, because it's when we're in suffering that we feel like we need God more, and so we're just naturally drawn to Him. And I found that evident in my own life, at least, that when I go through tougher things, that I feel closer to God. Break my heart for what breaks yours, right? When we have things that's going wrong in our life, like God uses it to help us seek Him more. And it's not really something that we can go like, oh yes, I'm gonna intentionally go out and have a rough day so that I can seek God. Like, that's not the attitude. But it means that when we do have those rough days, that we can intentionally in our minds go, oh, I'm able to focus on God a little bit closer. I'm able to experience His presence just a little bit more, which is really cool. I also like how you're talking about the Proverbs every day. Like the first thing you wake up in the morning and you read a proverb. That's really cool. Like the Bible talks about giving our first fruit to God, and the first part of your day is just waking up and reading scripture and spending time in His Word. And that's really encouraging, at least for me. I don't do the same thing. I read a psalm. I find that really comforting. But yeah, it's just like an intentional daily thing that you do to just go, okay, I'm going to take this time and just seek God. I'm just going to take this time to follow God and learn about what He has to say to me, which is really good. But yeah, the original question we asked was, sometimes it's hard to trust God. So what does that mean when it's hard to trust God? Keels, do you have a time, or at least a memory in your life where you've gone through a really tough time and been able to trust God, and it's like stood out how your faith in God was just so unwavering?
Yeah, I have. A few years ago, my parents separated, and it was surprising, but quite surprising as well. I wasn't I wasn't as deeply hurt as I thought. And I think that came down to my friends, actually. I felt like God revealed himself through my friends, and they were there for me and supporting me through like unknown times. So I think having a community to surround you is just so crucial and so important, that when things fall apart, having someone to rely on, even God, is really helpful.
Yeah, wow. That's really tough. I know, like in my own life, I've had, my parents are still together, so I haven't experienced the same things that you have. But when I have other challenges, I know that my friends are the ones that, they're the ones that are staying by my side and supporting me. And yeah, oftentimes that is God placing people in your life so that you can be supported, and that's a way that he is showing his love and his grace for us. And sometimes, at least in my own life, I've found myself thinking that, you know, there's not really many other options except to just trust that God is going to make something out of a rough situation. And so that trust is, it feels like pretty lackluster, because it's like, oh, I've got nothing else to trust in, like not my own efforts, not like my friends sometimes, but once they let me down, it's like, well, what now? And it's like, oh, okay, God, you're my last choice. But really, he should be our first choice. At least I'm speaking out of my own experience. I'm sure you guys might have experienced a similar thing. But yeah, oftentimes we push God to the side, and we only come to him after the situation has gotten so bad that we literally, that we need him. And it's in those situations, like Nick was saying before, when we have rough times, suffering, that's when we feel closest to God. And it's because we need him. But yeah, Nick, do you think that there's any ways to like intentionally enhance our trust in God and make sure that he is the first one that we go to?
I think not to be a I can't think of any good word phrases at the time, but a broken clock, something that says the same thing over and over again. But I think that trust isn't something that's built in a second. I mean, for some people, it could be built in a tough situation, and like to establish a baseline of trust, like, hey, I can trust you in this stressful situation. But deep trust over like a surface level survival trust, like, hey, this person will like not watch me die. To build a trust that's deeper than that, a relationship, it takes time and it takes effort. I think listening to God, obeying God, not just listening to him and then making the wrong decisions over and over, but actually being able to pray for help, listen to him, and then do the right thing. I think that he gives us all the reasons in the world to trust him. We have to, by obeying him, we give ourselves a reason to trust him. We feel better about ourselves. And by having a relationship of listening to him and doing what he's telling us through the Holy Spirit, I think that we build a deeper level of trust beyond the initial saving, serving in his ministry, doing good works. I think all of those things provide some deeper level of trust beyond just what's beyond quote unquote just salvation.
Yeah, definitely. I think like what you're saying goes even into normal relationships. Like the more time you spend with someone, the more you're going to build that connection and trust. The closer you'll be able to rely on someone when you need them, or even when you don't need them. And so when we are pursuing God in the times where we, aren't like really needing him, but just the normal parts of life, like that means that when we are in those really hard times, the times where suffering is just all around us, then we can like, I guess, take hold of that trust that we have even closer and grow even more, if that makes sense. But yeah, definitely, like when we spend time with people, we're gonna trust them more, and so engaging in God's words daily is a really good practice to make sure that we are constantly relying on God in our lives. Another really good you said before was praying. Praying will again set our focus on God, and that really should be our focus all the time. Should be on God, because when we place our focus on God, well, then we have God in our life. Like, what's better? So
Exactly.
yeah, it's incredible. I think there's lots of ways to try and, I guess, secure. I don't want to say the word secure, but find yourself relying on God more, and that's going to be through your daily disciplines of coming back and spending time with Him, whether it's prayer, worship, reading a proverb, or the Bible. It could be going to church or your small group, whatever it is. There's heaps of different ways. Maybe you like going on nature walks and chatting with God, or you like making a painting and finding God in the painting. Like, there's so many ways that you can find God. Like, we do it in Fortnite. We find God in Fortnite. Like, God is all around us, and nothing's stopping us from saying, "Hey God, will you do this with us?" And it's when we have Him there with us constantly that our hearts are formed in a way that desires Him more, that trusts Him more, and relies on Him more. Yeah.
I agree. I think to build on something you said a little bit earlier, Theo, you mentioned not searching out bad things that happen to us. There is really good news. Life is really, really hard. And I feel like whatever situation we're in, whether it is, the best day of our lives, we got engaged, something really good happened to us, or something that's really, really makes us reconsider what we live for, why we live. I think really any situation can and should be a situation for us as Christians where we're using that somehow to deepen our faith with God and to do His good works on earth. I mean, growing up, I was saved at a younger age. Like, by the time I think I was 10, I was saved, and I was baptized. And I thought then that I knew who God was and like what He was all about. But I was a really, really sneaky liar back then, and I just would lie about everything. Even as a little kid, I was really good at lying. And one day I heard the gospel, and I literally cried as a kid. I was like, why would someone come down here and die for me? And I thought I knew Him then, and I did to some extent. But then throughout my teenage years, I got into some other trouble and just got into some toxic thinking habits, some really poor self-esteem, depressive thoughts, and then I had to discover Him all over again. I think that's just how life works. The cycle of knowing God, who God is, learning some valuable life lesson, having to apply it in some way, having to use God, get on your knees and beg God to help you get out of whatever situation you're in and have a real moment with God, be able to create those actual moments, and then just do that over and over again. That's the Christian walk. That's the basis of it.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with 100% with everything you're saying. But yeah, I guess like whatever we're doing, it's always going to come back and kick us in the bum, and it's going to be something that hurts. But if we're focusing on God and focusing on the joy that He brings and focusing on the hope that He brings and the promises He's made to us, that is what gets us through. That is what, when we are down on our knees begging to God to join us in our struggles and our sufferings, that is how we can know that He's still there, He still loves us, and He still wants the best for us. So yeah, guys, thank you for joining us. I hope that you at least got something out of this conversation. I know I did. It's been really cool. So yeah, guys, we'll catch you in the next video. Peace.